Hello and welcome to How Frozen Foods Fit Modern Lifestyles, a Vypr webinar in collaboration with the British Frozen Food Federation on what consumers really want in frozen. My name is Ben Davies, I'm the founder of Vypr, and I'm here to guide the discussion today as we dive into the evolving frozen food landscape and what it means for both consumers and the industry. Recently, BFFF and Vypr collaborated conducting research with Vypr's proprietary community of over 80,000 UK consumers, creating a detailed report examining consumer perceptions and behaviours around frozen foods. You'll hear this research quoted today and can explore in full via the link in the description. One of the most interesting findings, nearly 9 in 10 consumers believe the nutritional quality of frozen foods has improved, and 2/3 are open to paying more for sustainably sourced options. This sets the stage for today's conversation about what's driving these changes and how industry can respond. There's a lot to unpick and discuss, and to do this, I'm joined by a fantastic panel of experts. We have Rupert Ashby, CEO of the British Frozen Food Federation, the UK's frozen food trade association, with over 300 members comprising producers, wholesalers, importers, exporters, brokers, retailers, and related associated businesses. Here to share his insights and represent his members. So welcome to Rupert. We have Debbie Davies, founder of Contigo Management Limited. Debbie is a category and insights expert with an impressive track record working with a variety of insight providers over the years. She's also collaborated with Vypr on numerous projects, bringing a deep understanding of how to put the consumer at the heart of business decisions. Welcome to Debbie. And we have Gareth Thomas, a category director at Iceland. As I'm sure you all know, one of the leading businesses in the UK retail space. Iceland have been setting the agenda for frozen food for many decades. Gareth, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
And finally, Christa Bloom-Burrows, brand director at Westbridge Foods, one of the UK's largest importers, developers and suppliers of frozen food. In 2017, she co-founded the disruptive plant-based brand Biff, now part of the Westbridge family of brands. Welcome to Christa. So let's begin by exploring what categories are driving consumer interest in frozen food. Debbie, we'll turn to you first. What are consumers telling us about what they value most in frozen foods?
Well, from a frozen product perspective, vegetables certainly lead the choices, with around 1/3 of consumers regularly picking them up. That's then followed by potato products with around 20%, and 1/3 is meat or poultry. So I think we've got quite a lot of sort of core products that are there for just in case and staples within the freezer space. And when shopping frozen, around 10% of shoppers also purchase ready meals, and even 4% are purchasing party food as well.
Okay, interesting. And Christa, what are you seeing, and how is Westbridge tailoring its offerings to meet these preferences?
Yeah, so I think obviously, functional categories, veg, poultry continue to remain the hero products, right? And, Westbridge is obviously really continuing to focus on those fundamentals and doing things like poultry and party food correct. But actually, what we're seeing is a kind of shoppers engaging in a wider range of products as well. And, I think the macroeconomic pressures over the last few years has pushed more people down the frozen aisle. And then actually that's kind of helped people to discover frozen and start to reconsider frozen. And actually it's about having great NPD and innovation to keep people there. And so from a brand perspective within Westbridge, we're looking at kind of the areas where we can innovate. As Debbie mentioned, frozen ready meals is a really interesting area for us. 10.3% of shoppers actually most frequently purchasing those. And actually what we're seeing is year on year, value is up 17%, according to Kantar. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here in this category, but it has been traditionally, I think, not always the most exciting. So actually what we've really been looking at is how we can kind of develop that within the branded space. So we've just launched a new Thai and East Asian frozen ready meal range called Kitchen Joy that's just actually launching this month. And it's, it's all about kind of creating a bit more excitement, innovation, color, brightness onto the shelves and within the category.
Very good, very good. Rupert, at a slightly higher level, I guess, are you seeing similar category trends across the broader frozen industry? And how do you think this shapes opportunities for frozen food brands?
Yeah, so I think, as Debbie mentioned, we're seeing significant increases around veg, fruit, and I think as we're seeing people realizing the benefits of frozen, particularly the nutritional side, where all the goodness is locked in from the moment it's frozen, and it'll stay at that level throughout its time in your freezer. And you mentioned earlier, 9 in 10 people sort of perceive an increase in quality of frozen food. I mean, I think probably the quality has always been there, but there is quite a lot of innovation, better packaging and better messaging out there. In terms of opportunities, I mean, convenience is a big one, as Christa just mentioned, around ready meals and the fact we're all very busy. So something that is very easy to prepare is, adds a bit of the incentive to get there. But also, I think there are opportunities in more developing new areas, such as plant-based, where, I mean, we know from research we've done with yourselves at Vypr that a third of vegans and vegetarians will actually start their supermarket journey in the frozen aisle, which is not the case for the majority of us. And so there's another example where you can focus in on some innovation and really look to take your brand there and make the most of it. But it is potentially a very exciting time for the frozen world at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. No, it feels it. And then finally, Gareth, how does Iceland tailor its offering to meet these preferences, I guess, particularly with vegetables kind of taking the lead at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've had a large range of core veg on sale ever since this business was born over 50 years ago. And in those days, it was help yourself, scoop it into a bag. And obviously we've moved on since then. But I think what the customers and consumers need more than ever is convenient meal solutions. And they want stuff which is more exciting than just plain peas or sweet corn or whatever. And we've been catering for that market for some time, so as have some of the brands. So we've just launched and refreshed a Steam Fresh range for vegetables, which is a microwavable format, whereas single serve out of the freezer into the microwave for a couple of minutes in a pouch format, and that's super nutritious, super tasty, and super quick. And I think the same as can be said for frozen rice, which is another big growing category in line with Andrea and rice, where people don't like cooking rice, so we can take all that hassle and risk away from doing that. So these areas where there's added value, new cooking methods, seems to be where the growth is. And I think on potato products, we've really innovated in that space over the last 2 or 3 years and taken the humble chip onto new meteoric kind of levels of innovation, and also potato product, non-chip products to a different level as well through working with our partner suppliers. And a big growth area in that space in particular is air fry. So our customers use the air fryer now more than the oven, which obviously was shared not long ago. And I think we've got a tie-up with Ninja, an official tie-up with their air fry partner. And this is a real potential for delivering convenience, quality, and a new market into frozen. Well, actually, frozen food works best in the air fryer, and our customers can save money, can save time, and deliver a better quality product. So it feels like for us, we're kind of pushing water downhill as an industry, as a frozen collective, in terms of that air fry opportunity.
Okay, no, very good. So you've all mentioned convenience and cost. We'll move on to the kind of the balance between those two things for a moment, because while frozen foods remain a cost-efficient choice, I think consumers are beginning to recognise that there are lots of other added benefits. Gareth, we'll stay with you. Iceland has kind of long championed affordability. What are you seeing as the key messages resonating with consumers when it comes to frozen currently?
Yeah, I think consumers have always expected frozen food to be a value option. And I think in some areas, and historically that meant that it was a cheap and cheerful option. And I think frozen food's come an awful long way in the last 10 years to shed that image and actually to derive value from being great value from a pence per kilogram, but also value from a quality point of view. But we know that customers, if they transferred their shop from a fresh shop to a frozen shop, would probably save about a third.
Right.
So how do we combat it? Well, we approach ranging with a good, better, best tiering. So anything from £1 for the absolute value-conscious customer who wants a great quality product, right through to the exclusive brands that offer value in a different way. And I think affordability from Iceland's perspective isn't just about being cheap and the cheapest in the market. It's about value driven through affordability. And there's this new phrase that is coming out called JOMO, which is the joy of missing out. And actually moving on from last year, where customers wanted to be in everything, and now actually what they want to do is they're not frightened to miss out on stuff and emulate it at home. So, for example, with our restaurant brands like GGI's, there's a growing trend for customers to try and emulate that experience in a restaurant at home, but obviously at a fraction of the price because they can't afford to take a family to these restaurant chains on a weekly or monthly basis. So I think it's not just about price. Affordability is around about price, quality, and also about this thing about creating experiences, which over the last 2 or 3 years through exclusive brands, we've really tried to push hard. And allied to that, of course, we've got a really strong trading branded promotion program with the likes of Bird's Eyes and McCain's and Young's, which is an always on deal where you can get 8 or 10 items for £10 every week in, week out, which if you think about the value for money aspect of that and what that can deliver for a customer, for easy meal solutions at a price where they can budget, it really is important for our customers.
Yeah, very good. And then Rupert, again, from a kind of across the whole market, how do you see the benefits of frozen food evolving, and how do you think the messaging should adapt to highlight these changes while staying relevant to consumer priorities?
We've got a great product. I mean, the health side we've talked about with all the vitamins and nutrients being locked in, and as we all get a little more health conscious, that is really useful. If frozen food doesn't have additives like some of its fresh equivalents, because it doesn't need them, because it's the freezing process actually does that. So if you're worried about those side of things, then again, it is a great option. We've got the innovations. A lot of them have been used in food service for quite a long time. Ready prepared sprouts, chopped onions, chopped garlic, all the fiddly little things that actually you can get them already done for you in the freezer, and don't worry about it. And Gareth's already touched on what they're doing with potatoes. And I was only trusted to do the mashed potato for Christmas lunch this year, but I did use Iceland's mashed potato, and everyone commented on what a good job I'd done on a mashed potato, which I was delighted about. And of course, took all the glory. But I think one of the really important things is as we look at sustainability, and I know we'll probably touch on this later, but food waste is a major issue. We throw away millions of tons every year, and the carbon emissions from that are huge. And I think in 2023, WRAP did a report which showed that if you buy frozen food, you might reduce your household waste by up to 47%, because of course you don't throw it away at the end, you put it back, and the bag goes back in the freezer, and you use it again later. Whereas we're all guilty of finding that slightly yellowing bit of broccoli at the bottom of the fridge. We didn't mean not to eat it, but we didn't, and I think that's one area that we really need to push, and I think customers will be more and more interested in as time goes on.
Yeah, okay. And then Christa, you guys have got quite a broad portfolio. You've had a focus in recent years launching new brands alongside your current offering. How does customer recognition of these kind of benefits that we've been touching on impact the evolution of your overall range?
Yeah, I mean, for a start, I think obviously Westbridge has got huge reach in private label, and that continues to be, the core of our business. But actually, what we see is these real opportunities in brands being able to sort of drive particular messages home within some of these. So actually, quality is always going to be a number one focus of what we do, right? But I think, those convenience and experience metrics, I think, are really key things within brands at the moment. So for instance, actually, if we look at the experience and kind of picking up from what Gareth said in terms of that, creating those restaurant experiences at home, as I say, the new brands that we launched, Kitchen Joy, is all about that kind of takeaway styles, what's kind of heat and eat packaging, and it just really gives you that kind of authentic experience. But actually, where we're seeing convenience is becoming a huge driver for customers, and actually where we're continuing to develop and look at how we can make things more convenient. Actually, in some of our core categories, with our tasting brand, what we're seeing is actually shoppers are starting to move beyond traditional kind of raw, and actually that is maybe becoming slightly more of an older shopper, and actually younger shoppers are looking for those convenient options. So there's meal preps, there's busy midweek occasions, and the tasting, when we've done this kind of cooked and frozen ready to go options, they have huge demand in that. We're seeing that brand growing 40% year on year. So I think we're looking at ways we can continue to develop that convenient message and find classics in new ways to make everyone's lives better. And I think that's how you get people excited about frozen.
Okay. Yeah, nice. And then Debbie, finally, from a research perspective, can you give any insight into the top drivers for consumers heading to the frozen aisle in 2025?
Well, looking back again at the data from the Vypr report with the British Food Federation, British Frozen Food Federation, apologies. When we asked the question, what's the main reason for choosing frozen foods over fresh alternatives? Obviously, there's no surprise given the conversation we've just had that convenience far outweighs cost. And while frozen foods are still valued for their cost efficiency, convenience emerges as the top motivator for around a third of consumers. Followed by longer shelf life of these products. So again, contributing to minimal waste going forward as well. So people recognise that there are far more benefits for frozen food than perhaps historically that's been given credit for. And also the learnings from the pandemic where people moved to frozen foods because they weren't able to shop as frequently, I think has given a lot of younger consumers access to a marketplace that they perhaps weren't even used to at that point.
Okay. So there's been a couple of mentions of brand versus own label. So we'll turn to that for a moment. So there is a continued consumer focus on affordability and convenience. Debbie, we'll stay with you. Are consumers, are they choosing branded or own label as a kind of a high level guide? And what does the data tell us about the perceived quality of each of those things?
So out of 1,000 respondents that we spoke to, actually 60% buy a mix of both brand and own label. And I think that depends very much on products and what they see in the supermarkets, offers, etc. at the time. And in equal amounts, 17% buy branded only and 17% buy own label only. So you've got only really around 5% who don't buy frozen foods at all or claim not to buy frozen foods. So the majority are switching between both.
Okay.
And in terms of the perception and key factors, if priced similarly, quality emerges the most important contributing factor for decision. And that's on the free text steer that we used. So to understand what people unprompted, what people's motivations were and thoughts were. And I think that's quite an important aspect because I think the quality in the area has increased dramatically. And this is what people are choosing their brands and products based on. And then when assessing the quality, the brand reputation's got around 27% of people saying that is the most important reason, followed by price, 23%, and then the appearance of the product, 18%. Even in a freezer, the appearance of the product's important, and packaging often will lead the way in that in terms of giving an idea whether or not the product is, what the product tastes like inside. So that's very important as well. So we have a nice quote here from a male aged 35 to 44 saying about quality perception, he often associates premium brands with higher quality, which can sway choice, especially for products where quality is crucial.
Okay, interesting. And kind of building on that, Gareth, obviously Iceland have got a huge heritage in own brand within frozen, and you continue to invest heavily. How do you ensure that those products can compete with the kind of the big national brands and premium brands in terms of taste, quality, and sustainability?
Well, first of all, I think at Iceland, we love frozen food. It's our business, it's the core of what we do. If we don't get frozen right, the business isn't right. So we put all of our focus, love and attention into frozen food and frozen food development. We also have a long-term suite of suppliers who've been working with for many, many decades. And you have to have the foundation of supply base right because you can't retrofit those aspects you just spoke about into a product. They've got to be inherent in it from the start. So you've got to build quality value products from the ground up. So we've got a good supply base with a team that loves what they do and is good at what they do. And a few years ago, we built a state-of-the-art Iceland kitchen here at our head office in North Wales. And one of the reasons we did that was to drive innovation through a team of chefs who are always coming up with ideas, but also to create a really inspirational environment to look at product, look at ideas, and also look at the quality of our products versus the market and versus specifications. So there's a really inspirational space, and I know a few of you have been to that facility, and it really does oil the wheels of developing great quality, great value products. And we make sure that they are what they need to be by listening to what our customers say. So we get feedback from a number of different forums, but the most urgent, quick one is obviously online, where customers can leave their feedback, hopefully good, but not always good. And if it isn't good, and if a product is scoring a 1 or 2 stars out of 5, we will panel that product with that comment from that customer at a panel every Wednesday where I attend and the CEO of our business attends every week. That is the kind of respect we've got for our customer feedback on the quality of our product. Quality comes first. It's driven from the board down that you can only sell a bad quality product once, and then you won't get that frozen food customer back. They'll flitter off to another retailer or back to fresh. So the quality is really, really crucial. And then all those other aspects around taste and value, they're all built into the product. And we've got a team of chefs, team of suppliers who really work on making sure that is the best it can be in the market. Sustainability wise, doing it right is a key part of our business. And I think we've proven ourselves over the years to be a sustainable business, but there are some key areas such as fish where there are specific sustainability accreditations where every year we're getting a higher percentage of MSC accredited products, but I think we'll come to talk about that a bit later on.
Yeah, okay, very good. And then Rupert, we've touched on consumer perception, particularly when it comes to kind of brand versus own label. What's the increasing role of award recognition, such as the BFFF on consumer decisions now?
We run the British Frozen Food Awards every year. And it's a great opportunity for our members across both retail and food service to showcase their new products, the exciting things that they're doing, and all the innovation. And I mean, one role of it, we this year coming up, we are because of the number of products that have been entered, we're running 20 consumer panels all over the country. And so on each panel, there'll be 12 people from all walks of life who will get to try these products and will judge them. And then both the retail and food service are judged by professional chefs as well. So we also get an opportunity, not only to run the awards, but both consumers and chefs get to see what is out there, what great new products are there. I think just to back that up, some research that we've done with the Vypr panel was looking at people's perception of awards. And I mean, it was great to see that approaching 55% of respondents are more likely to choose a product that has an award on its packaging. So I mean, if our members are winners, we do provide winners logos, and quite a few of our members now are increasingly putting that on. And the research also showed that 43% of respondents actually will, when they're looking at packaging, will look out for an award. And I think probably for the industry, the millennials really do put quite a high weighting on this, because they view it as a sort of a seal of approval, a seal of quality and taste, which they trust in. And so that's really good for basically all awards, really, and it does show the benefits of making the most of it if you have won an award.
Yeah, for sure. And then finally, Christa, on this brand versus own label topic, from your branded perspective, how do you address the challenge of standing out against the increasing the kind of strong own brand offerings on the market?
I don't see it as a challenge. I think it's the purpose of brand is to contrast and is to create a kind of ecosystem within brand and own label. They really complement each other and they both serve their purposes. So I think, brands have this really particular specialist role. I think particularly there is sort of 3 kind of core aspects that I look at is 1, a brand can provide specialism, whether that's a cuisine. So for instance, Westbridge, we have a lot of specialism within Asia and being able to therefore manufacture things that can have a lot more authenticity potentially. So I think, for instance, in the Kitchen Joy range, which is all made in Thailand with proper Thai ingredients. So that is bringing something that's slightly different to the market and that really I think a brand can achieve in the best possible way. And I think world foods is a really important and exciting area of development at the moment. On top of that, I think obviously innovation is really key. So in the plant-based realm, actually what we saw is really, it was the brands that were innovating first and bring things first to market. And really, like, it's the brands that have kind of led the charge. So actually, to bring new categories to market, I think brands are really, really important there. And I think we'll continue to see exciting developments from that area. And then over time, we test and see what works. And part of our thing is to be those trailblazers, to shout about them, and to get people excited and create the overall national conversation that then we can work with the retailers on building long-term sustainable categories for them. But I think the final thing and the most important thing for me really with brands is about storytelling. And I think that is really the difference that I think a brand can bring to the market. So for instance, with a plant-based brand Biff, this actually started as a restaurant in London and street food stalls. And, so we can build this kind of narrative and conversation. And obviously you see that a lot with in Iceland with a lot of the restaurant brands that they're working with as well. And I think there's really kind of sort of excitement and sense of kind of feeling, and you can really drive something different with that. And I think that can be both in sort of visual resonance and how we stand out on shelf, but also just in our overall storytelling and messaging. And I think you can see that's really working. For instance, if we look back a couple of years of the pandemic, look at Little Means, who are kind of a relatively not well-known brand, but actually what they did is actually kind of drive people to the frozen aisles and get people excited and go viral and create this whole moment. And I think, brands have a really great space to do that, and it can be really complementary to own label as well.
Okay, very good. And then staying with you for a minute, Christa, we're just going to touch briefly on plant-based. It's obviously kind of a rapidly evolving space. How do you anticipate the shift in consumer preferences within plant-based, and how are those shifts kind of influencing your approach to MPD and messaging in 2025?
I think data actually from our own research we've done with Vypr and elsewhere has seen that 68% of shoppers are looking for more veg-led options. And I think that is the real shift of the category into 2025. And I think, we've got the kind of simple meat alts kind of established in the market, and they sort of support a certain thing, but actually really I think the veg-led area is where we've got the most opportunity to grow, and I think build more trust with consumers and build more variety with consumers. I think we're moving away from this idea of everything being vegan or non-vegan, and actually what we're doing is really kind of creating more plant-led diets and more kind of swap-ins for people. And I think a more kind of veg-led approach can do that. With our brand Bits, actually that's always been a really veg-led brand, but actually when we started off, this wasn't such a big part of the conversation, so we didn't really focus on that too much in our messaging. And actually what we've done over the last couple of years is really kind of refocus that. So our kind of hero tagline is packed with proper plants, because actually everything we make is, our core products are made out of things like jackfruit and mushrooms and so forth. And so actually bringing that to the front and using actually testing with Vypr, etc., to do that is really helpful, because it helps us understand how customers are reacting to those messages, and kind of get that right message. And we do see that continuing to evolve. It's a very new category. I think early on we thought, actually, is this going to kind of run away very, very quickly? But actually what you find is that categories going to go through evolutions and change. I think we've been in a real changeable period over the last couple of years. And what we're seeing is starting to come out the other side of that, of, not having too many brands in the market, actually focusing on really great quality brands who are offering something different and unique, and celebrating and supporting shoppers in what they need, whether that is to switch out to more plant-based because of environmental reasons, or actually just more because of health reasons as well. And that's where I think the veg-led side is particularly exciting in helping that.
Yeah, okay. Very good. And we've mentioned sustainability a few times now. I just want to kind of touch on that a little bit. Rupert, just moving to you for a moment. The frozen aisle has long been seen as the kind of the budget-friendly section. We've kind of discussed how that's kind of shifted in the last few years. How do you shift perceptions to position frozen foods as premium, innovative, and I guess importantly, kind of very eco-friendly and sustainable without alienating price-sensitive shoppers?
I mean, interestingly, this country does focus in on price quite a lot. There are some European countries where frozen is thought of as a premium product. And I remember the Italian food attaché telling me that if food is cheap over there, they don't buy it because they're suspicious that something's going on. But I think the reality is that from all the things we've just been talking about, frozen is a very good product. And it's cheap not because it's poor quality, it's cheap because the whole process doesn't have that much waste in. Once it is processed, it won't go off later on. So there's not that much waste in terms of storage or transport and areas like that. And that means that we are able to keep the price where it is and keep it affordable for everyone. So, I mean, really, it's a good story. You have a quality, a nutritious product that is sustainable, and it's really getting the messaging out there. And I think the frozen aisle is uniquely placed to do that. We do know that two-thirds of consumers will react to products that are sustainably sourced and will potentially buy it above one that they're not sure about. And so again, I think clever marketing, packaging, clear labeling, and all of that will just help with that process, and hopefully we will see the whole category go from strength to strength.
Very good. And then Debbie, from a consumer perspective, I mean, at a relatively high level, what are consumers looking for when it comes to the industry matching their sustainability, environmental desires?
Well, Rupert's touched on it and talking about the labelling and how it's produced as well. So 2/3 of consumers are more likely to buy frozen food that is sort of labelled as sustainably sourced or produced sustainably. So they are reading what is on the packaging. Over half actually claim that they would pay extra for frozen foods that are sustainably sourced. The fact of how it is packaged as well matters. So more than 1 in 2 grocery shoppers actually care about the impact of the packaging as well. So it's like taking the whole product, looking at its entirety, and making sure the key messages are there to help educate consumers as well. So I think we've got a job to do in this country. We're not quite there in terms of the positioning where other countries may see it as slightly more premium.
For sure. Yeah. And Christa, as a key supplier within the industry, how's Westbridge approaching sustainability to meet the consumer demand for ethical and environmentally friendly food choices?
From a business perspective, there's a lot that we're doing. Westbridge is part of the CP group, and there is really, really strong kind of policy across the group and ambitions. We have net zero targets in place for 2050, and we're doing that properly across science-based targets and forest, land and agriculture targets as well. So, I think that's really important to as a business to have those processes and checks and balances in place. And, there's so much going on here. But then it's really about then how we communicate that out to a consumer and how we can start getting those messages across. And so, for instance, on our plant-based brand books, we are now carbon labeling on all of our products. And so working with a company called My Emissions to do that. And so to really make it clear for consumers, this is an A-rated carbon product, it is much more sustainable than others on the market. And I think that's a really exciting area to look at, and that really involves, looking at every part of the supply chain in order to do that. And I think there's actually a really interesting thing of how I think in this country at the moment, we don't have one consistent messaging across the board for how we approach sustainability, and I think that is a bit of a challenge. I think there's great companies out there doing amazing work with it, but we don't have a kind of consistent government guidance for this. I think it'd be quite interesting to explore that and make it a bit more simple for consumers. In the same way they're going to look at a traffic lights label system and understand that, how can we create something across the board for sustainability as well over time? I think that's quite an ambitious project, but I think it's something we need to all continue to work on as an industry, and actually just shout out a bit more about why we are more sustainable. Talking about what Rupert was saying earlier regarding feed waste and things like that. Actually, how can we communicate this across the industry and work together to do that?
Yeah. Okay. No, very good. And then Gareth, I guess a similar question from a retail perspective, as one of the key frozen retailers in the UK. What initiatives have proven successful in the past couple of years from a sustainability and food waste perspective, and where do you see you guys can keep on improving?
Well, I think frozen food is inherently more sustainable than its so-called fresh equivalent. And I think it's a big opportunity for us as an industry to really grasp that, particularly with the younger consumers, where sustainability is really part of reasons why they buy or don't buy products. We're not flying in fresh fruit and veg or fish on a daily basis into the UK at whatever CO2 and monetary cost of that. There's a much more friendly supply chain, which reduces waste and also has a lower carbon footprint. And at Iceland, we've always been at the forefront of ethical issues. It's kind of part of our DNA, as we call it, doing it right. And I think Sir Malcolm Walker, our founder, has always been at the forefront of some pretty cutting-edge initiatives. That goes back to the fight against GM foods coming into the UK many, many years ago. And obviously the more recent stances on palm oil reduction, which we're very proud of that in terms of leading the charge on palm oil, and more recently plastic reduction. Again, as a smaller player in the market, we agitated the market, and really in both palm oil and plastic, we started that kind of revolution across the UK food retail market by making some pretty aggressive stances on that. So we're proud of our DNA in terms of sustainability, and I think customers are seeing that more and more, and that is important.
Yep.
And there's other things that go on under the radar where we've just redistributed 2.5 million meals to communities through Olio since 2022. That's 3,000 tons of waste that could have gone to waste but didn't. It went into a redistribution to those communities that needed it most. And there's stuff like that in the background, which is we're really proud of that. And there's so much more we can do in that space, but we're doing it, and we're very proud of doing it. And there's some real creative ways as to, away from product, how we can be more sustainable moving forward as a business, as an industry.
Yeah, that's very impressive. And then just to close on this topic, Rupert, I guess with the BFFF as the mouthpiece for the whole sector and the kind of the strength that frozen can bring to sustainability, how are you going to champion frozen foods in tackling food waste and supporting sustainable living in 2025?
We ran a campaign, we have done for the last couple of years, called the Frozen Food Revolution. And one of the main focuses of that has been food waste, and just putting out information there so people can understand how they really can help to reduce carbon, and what the significant effect of food waste is. But alongside that, it also promotes all the other great benefits that we've been talking about. I think we had about 20,000 consumers engaged with that campaign towards the end of last year, and we're hoping that out of that, more people are thinking about the frozen aisle and visiting it. But on the flip side, obviously, there is the government side of it. There are the government agencies and all the lobbying work that we do on behalf of our members. Because again, the government is worried about food waste, but it doesn't always naturally think of frozen food as part of that solution. And so it's making sure that key players, from ministers to officials within the various departments and agencies, know about that, and working with them to try and sort of spread that word. Just to it's not going to completely change the world, but if the more of it that's used, it's going to really help. And there's 10% of our carbon emissions in this country, food waste, which is quite extraordinary. And so really, really good opportunity to chip away at that.
Yeah, for sure. So the last 10 minutes or so, we've got a couple of topics just to dig into. First one, health and wellness. Conversation around health and wellness is taking center stage as consumers become increasingly conscious of their food choices, and frozen's no exception. There are some consumer misconceptions, and industry responses are kind of shaping the role of frozen foods in health-conscious lifestyles. Just turning to you, Debbie, for a moment. What's the consumer view? Is frozen keeping up with the health-conscious consumer, do you think?
Absolutely. So the data is showing us from the Vypr and the British Frozen Food Federation report that actually nearly 2/3 of consumers, 63%, feel that the nutritional quality of frozen food has improved in recent years. So that's a good starting point.
Yep.
The consumers have also noticed improvements in own label frozen products, including better nutritional value, healthier option, and clearer labeling. I think it's easier to use own label products as a benchmark because there's lots of periphery of different brands. But they're noticing that, and brands have got more flexibility to communicate outside of specific corporate guidelines. However, there are common misconceptions that include the belief that frozen food loses nutrients and contains more additives. Whilst consumers know about flash freezing, they recognise the benefits for nutrient preservation. Not everybody understands it. So maybe including something or education on pack might actually help that understanding and improve sales. So in terms of the barriers, really to overcome, many consumers do perceive, those consumers who do perceive there to be less nutritional value compared to fresh alternatives due to the freezing process, that understanding and perception needs to be overcome but the majority do understand and recognise the value that frozen foods stands, the nutrition value that frozen foods bring.
Okay, which seems quite positive. Rupert, across the whole industry, what do you see in terms of the industry responding to this demand for cleaner, healthier frozen food options?
I mean, I'm not going to repeat what Debbie says, but I mean, obviously there's some clear sort of figures in there. I think the clearer labelling that we've talked about earlier and making the most of it. But we're increasingly seeing products with some added ones. One of the smoothies that won our frozen drinks awards last year had added proteins and was looking at the sort of the health market and what people are looking for in their food. And a lot of those, you see a lot of products now sort of looking at healthy options. It's the convenience for the busy person who's also doing maybe a lot of exercise and wants that protein or whatever they're after. But and so it gives a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and Christa, how are Westbridge responding to the health agenda in terms of MPD, in terms of range, in terms of marketing?
I think there's kind of a lot that's going on there at the moment. I think actually with the launch of the Kitchen Joy brand, one of the things we've actually done is really actually talk about, unpack the flash freezing process of it, and sort of using that as a message to both lock in nutrition and flavour within the product as well. And I do think it is something as a brand we maybe need to think about a bit more in a frozen, how we kind of get that message across and understand that you do get kind of actually in a way a more fresh product than a fresh product sometimes when you think about, for shelf life, etc. on things. So I think that's really key. I think there's a real opportunity at the moment with clean eating, these kind of meal prep kind of trends within younger consumers particularly, but actually we're seeing this is resonating across the board. And I think actually the meal prep, actually what I think is quite interesting is that everybody is, you're meal prepping and you're freezing your meals that you cook 5 in a week. So consumers are getting more comfortable with actually using their freezers in their own environment. So how can we kind of extend that outwards into what they're purchasing and bringing into the home as well? So, and there's a lot that we can do there. And I think, there's we're going to touch a bit more around concerns on processing and additives, and again, it's how we get that message out there. But actually, this food is doesn't necessarily have the same amount of additives that you would expect a chilled or ambient product to have to achieve the same level of shelf life. So, I think there's a lot of exciting work that we can do there.
Okay, very good. And then Gareth, how are Iceland addressing consumer interest in health and wellness at the moment? Are there specific product lines or ranges or innovations leading the way on that agenda?
Yeah, we've got a lot going on in this space, and I think we've got a good heritage here also, because Cineworld celebrates 10 years in our business this year, and it's at its peak right now. So Cineworld is firing on all cylinders in the first aisle of our store. So it's the first thing you walk into when you walk into store, with an expanded range, and it still has a mass appeal for our customers, and that's all about how you help customers to lose weight through a specific program, a health program, which obviously resonates outside of the frozen space through clubs and classes and whatnot. And then a few years ago, we partnered with MyProtein, which again is having its kind of peak period right now in terms of sales, with an expanded range again in the first aisle, which is targeting a different customer with a different need state, very specific to protein, which obviously we know through all the different temperature bands has become kind of the next big thing, which, Veganuary was that, and now it's definitely proteins in that space where there's an awful lot of product and marketing. But those two things are quite specific in terms of how they target customers and target customer groups.
Yeah.
Well, just this month, we've launched a wellness range of ready meals under the MyProtein hat as well, which is a very targeted boosted health range, which aims to help customers with a healthy lifestyle, but targets things like gut health, cognitive health, and just general well-being. And that's all done through the MyProtein wellness brand, and they're selling really well just a few weeks in. So it shows that even in the frozen space, we can take an idea that would sit in quite a premium, fresh retailer kind of portfolio, and then offer it within Iceland and within our branding.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in terms of, and then we've got another one coming up in a few weeks, which is allied to really helping mums and parents to to feed their children really nutritious kind of homemade style meals. So there's a partnership that'll be released in a few weeks' time, and that will build on that to enable our core customers to give their families really nutritious, great value meals from they're cooked from the freezer.
Yeah, very good. So we're nearly out of time, but before we go, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the future of frozen foods. What are your hopes and fears as we head into 2025? So, Rupert, from a holistic perspective, let's start with you.
I think there's a great opportunity to lead the innovation, particularly in certain areas, and make the most of the fact that we're in general becoming more health conscious, and frozen has a great story. So I think that's exciting. I think at the same time, though, we've just got to look at the industries. It's had a challenging time with supply chains and costs of ingredients and things like that.
Yeah.
And as we go into this year, with the national insurance increases and wage increases and areas like that, it's going to be a difficult time for the industry. But I think frozen is placed to sort of ride that out and hopefully sort of have a booming future.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Rupert. And Christa, what are your thoughts when you're turning to 2025?
I think it's a really exciting time for frozen at the moment. I think particularly within brands. I think I think this is the opportunity for us to go beyond representing simply value, but actually to really be about innovation, sustainability. I think there's lots of exciting buzzwords. I think we're starting to bring a new audience into frozen, and to paraphrase some kind of people with red hats. Let's make frozen greater again. I think it's a really exciting year and lots to develop. But I would really like to see some more consistent cross-industry work on sustainability and how we communicate those messages.
Very good. And Debbie, from a consumer perspective, how do you see consumer desires evolving during 2025?
I mean, they're certainly seeking foods that fit in with their lifestyles. So well-being, nutrients, they are growing at meal times. People are looking for products that can help them with their health. So frozen products could be a key part of their repertoire in that regard, particularly as they're easy and convenient. That those two factors are not going to go away anytime soon. And consumers are looking for products that they can't easily replicate at home. And frozen provides a very quick, easy alternative to them sort of slaving away in the kitchen, although air fryers are a fantastic innovation that can be introduced. Also, the continued improvement in quality over other foods needs to be communicated to the shopper. And while some stores, Iceland particularly is a good example, actually make that freezer space a little bit more of an enjoyable shop, at the end of the day, in some stores, it's quite alien and quite cold and miserable, and there's opportunities to actually bring the areas to life a lot more, to actually engage more in the food sense. It's very hard when you're in a freezer to bring that message across, but I think if retailers focus on that as well, and shoppers are going to go down the aisle more often, there could be a win-win for everybody.
Very good. And then finally, Gareth, what's next for Iceland? What makes you optimistic about 2025?
I think as a collective, we're really well placed to carry on our journey of changing perceptions of the UK public. It's like turning a super tanker around trying to do that. But I think we've made massive progress through COVID and since then as an industry. And I think there's the various factors coming at us this year, which again will play into frozen. So Rupert mentioned the cost of living crisis, which I think is going to be a thing. There will be food inflation back on the agenda. And it's really how does frozen win in that space in terms of a more efficient supply chain and people down trading out of fresh into frozen, or out of premium retailers into more discount retailers, or from a QSR restaurant experience into trying to emulate that at home. So we can win in all those fronts and help customers really to still enjoy eating food, but food that they can afford to eat. And there's a couple of structural things that will continue to push. So air fry and the Ninja cooperative will be a really big push for us again this year, because that's helping people be more convenient to save money and deliver better quality product. And I think frozen can win in that space. We've got HFSS to implement and make sure that that is all implemented without too much disruption to our customers. And then we're working on something called a fridge life for frozen food, which we're quite a way on with actually, and have launched it in some areas where we're we're instructing our customers or educating our customers on pack about a life in the fridge that's safe for frozen products. So instead of keeping it in freezer, they can buy it from Iceland frozen, and they can store it in the fridge for however many days is right for that particular product. And that helps us in a decreasing capacity for frozen food storage at home to get around that by saying to customers, you can actually store it in the freezer, of course, but you can also store it in the fridge. The same as the fresh market's been saying, freezable on many fridge items for many years. So that is something, again, a bit of a super tanker in terms of perceptions to turn around, but we're on that journey. We'd like the industry to get on that journey to make it an interesting, not an Iceland thing, by which customers can not use capacity of frozen storage as an excuse not to buy frozen food, and then we can take that fight to the fresh market. So that's part of my busy agenda for the year.
Yeah, sounds very busy. Well, sadly, we are out of time. I just first of all say thank you to our incredible panelists, Rupert Ashby, Debbie Davies, Christa Bloom-Burrows, Gareth Thomas, for sharing your expertise and insights today. And importantly, thank you to our audience for joining us and contributing great questions. If we didn't have time to get to your question during the live broadcast, don't worry, our panelists will follow up after the webinar. Be sure to check the description below for our Frozen Food Insight report, created in collaboration with the BFFF for more in-depth insights. Thank you again, and goodbye.